Thailand has signaled readiness for a new chapter in economic ties with Myanmar as it leads efforts to bring its war-torn neighbour back into the ASEAN fold.
Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul said it will push for more trade and energy collaboration as he welcomed Myanmar leader Min Aung Hlaing in Bangkok.
ในฐานะผู้นำรัฐบาลผมมีความเชื่ออยู่เสมอว่าไม่ว่าสถานการณ์ทางการเมืองทั้งภายในหรือภายนอกประเทศจะเป็นเช่นไรหน้าที่ของรัฐบาลก็คือการทำให้ประชาชนยังมีความอยู่ดีกินดีสามารถใช้ชีวิตได้อย่างปลอดภัยมั่นคงมีงานทำมีรายได้และมีความหวังในอนาคตเศรษฐกิจต้องไม่สะดุดธุรกิจต้องเดินหน้าและนั่นคือสิ่งที่เรามุ่งหวังจะทำร่วมกัน
Min Aung Hlaing is on his first official visit to Thailand since he was declared president in April after an election criticized by international observers as neither fair nor free. It comes 5 years after he led the bloody coup that triggered the civil war and ousted the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi.
Now he's seeking to reassure Prime Minister Anutin and the Thai business community that his government is working to restore peace and stability in Myanmar.
မြန်မာနိုင်ငံရဲ့သဘာဝအရေးနဲ့အားသာချက်တွေကိုထိုင်းစီးပွားလုပ်ငန်းရှင်များရဲ့ဤပညာအရေးနည်းနဲ့စီမံခန့်ခွဲမှုအတွေ့အကြုံစတဲ့ပုံစံလိုက်မယ်ဆိုရင်လူတွေပဲအပြန်အလှန်အကျိုးဖြစ်စေမယ့်ဝင်ဝင်စီးပွားရေးပတ်ဝန်းကျင်ကိုလည်းပိုမိုခိုင်မာအောင်ပြုဆောင်နိုင်မှုတွေကျွန်တော်ယုံကြည်ပါတယ်
For more, we're joined by Thomas Kean, the Crisis Group's senior consultant for Myanmar and Bangladesh. Thomas, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. So for about a week now, we've been asking why Thailand would host this meeting with, Min Aung Hlaing, despite objections from many quarters, including his own members of parliament, I should add. But Min Aung Hlaing not only got the full works, he got a guard of honor as well. I mean, the question is why? I mean, why would Anutin do this when he could easily have carried out an effective bilateral meeting without all the ceremonial pageantry?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, it's a great question. I mean, I think we've definitely seen a different approach from this Thai government towards Min Aung Hlaing's administration, particularly after he was declared president in April. I think for Thailand, there are a number of bilateral concerns that are driving this re-engagement, particularly energy supply from Myanmar, border security, and also the scams in border areas. But as you say, this is not just about bilateral relations. This is also about Thailand's push to have ASEAN normalize ties with Myanmar. And that is creating quite a lot of divisions within the bloc, particularly from countries like Singapore that are saying that Myanmar needs to show, progress on the 5-point consensus. So it is very divisive. I think part of Thailand's broader concerns are Chinese influence in Myanmar and trying to counteract that, and that leaving, Myanmar on the sidelines or excluded from the bloc's high-level meetings will push the country towards China. I don't really see that as a major concern because I think Myanmar's generals are always wary of China and will be doing whatever they can to, to decrease Beijing's leverage over them. So I don't think that that's necessarily a serious concern, or at least it doesn't justify dropping the demands that ASEAN has been making for progress from Min Aung Hlaing's administration.
Okay, Thomas. So Thailand is calling this a calibrated re-engagement. But after, the red carpet welcome and the joint statement, barely mentioning the civil war or the 5-point consensus, what exactly is calibrated about it?
Yeah, it was striking in the joint statement. I mean, there was a reference to Myanmar-owned and Myanmar-led peace process, but they were clearly referring to the peace invitation or invitation for talks that Min Aung Hlaing has made since April. But that is very different from the inclusive dialogue that ASEAN has been demanding. Min Aung Hlaing has specifically excluded all the new resistance forces and groups like the National Unity Government that have formed since the coup. So this is really not an inclusive process at all. And, the only ethnic armed groups in Myanmar that have participated are ones that are not actively fighting against the military. So far, I would say it's been a failure. But Thailand, is getting right behind this process and putting a lot of pressure on ethnic armed groups that have been fighting against the Myanmar military to engage in talks. From the point of view of those ethnic armed groups, this is not a serious offer from Min Aung Hlaing. He's not offering any political concessions. And he really is just trying to divide the opposition movement and to split away different parts of it to make it weaker.
Right. And how much of this, Thomas, is Anutin, playing to a domestic audience, him showing ties, I'm in charge, amid all the ongoing issues you mentioned, like, the scam centers, the drug trafficking and border security?
I think that's certainly part of it. But I suspect that a lot of it is also economic, and obviously that is a domestic political issue. So I think, the domestic element of it is, is partly economically driven. I mentioned energy supplies before. Myanmar for decades has been a major supplier of natural gas to Thailand. But the output from the fields in Myanmar has been declining significantly, and there haven't been new fields coming online to replace that. Given the war in the Middle East, I think that has also added a kind of urgency from the Thai perspective to get more exploration happening in Myanmar and bring more gas fields online to replace the declining output from existing fields. So, that's not just an economic issue, that's an energy security issue as well. Right. And so I think, there are a bunch of different factors that are pushing Thailand towards closer engagement. But, you also mentioned the scam centers. I mean, Thailand is coming under quite a lot of pressure from both China and the United States to take action against the scam centers. And so that is also pushing it towards engaging neighbour.
Okay.
But, neighbour is part of the scam economy as well. So, just engaging neighbour is not necessarily going to solve the problem.
Okay. I mean, and here's the one I've been wanting to ask. Does Myanmar actually need ASEAN? Some say it already has the support of India, Laos. Russia's been a long-time supporter. You mentioned some reluctance, on the part of Myanmar towards China, but China, for its own reasons, doesn't want to see, the military government fall. What does ASEAN give that all these countries currently do not?
Well, I think ASEAN is important for Myanmar. There are various aspects to the relationship, but I think a really important one for Naypyidaw is international acceptance and international legitimacy. It wants to be part of this group. It sees itself as, an important country, a large country in Southeast Asia. And so leaving ASEAN would be, a giant stain on Min Aung Hlaing's administration, on his legacy, which, as we know, is already quite stained. But I think the way that the military perceives itself, I think it would be, it would be very damaging to its self-image to leave ASEAN. And also, as I said, it's not comfortable giving China too much leverage. It's had to engage more closely with China in order to, to preserve, to ensure that it doesn't lose the civil war in Myanmar. But it's done that kind of grudgingly. And there's always a level of wariness about getting too close to China, about giving Beijing too much leverage.
Okay. And Thomas, if engagement fails to deliver progress on violence or humanitarian access, political dialogue, and so forth, what sort of options does ASEAN have left?
Well, I think, we're talking about what was in the joint statement here. It's very striking how different it is from some of the discussions at the recent ASEAN foreign ministers meeting, where they were talking about setting benchmarks that Myanmar would have to meet for full normalization. And I think that is a really important step for ASEAN to take because, the 5-point consensus and normalization is really the one card that it has with neighbour. We know that Min Aung Hlaing wants to be welcomed back into this bloc. He was quite upset when ASEAN didn't just normalize immediately after the election. And so, ASEAN should be using that leverage. It should set benchmarks, that his administration has to meet around inclusive dialogue, humanitarian access, and so on. And, use that leverage to force him to take steps to genuinely end the civil war in Myanmar. His peace process is not going to do that. As I said, it's going to potentially divide the resistance, and that will enable the Myanmar military to concentrate its forces on one group at a time. And it's not going to lead to less conflict. It's going to lead to more conflict. And so I think it's really important that ASEAN sticks to its guns here and forces Min Aung Hlaing's administration to make concessions in exchange for normalization.
All right, Thomas, we'll see what the second day of the visit yields and also the response from ASEAN in the days ahead. Appreciate it, Thomas. Thomas Kean is Senior Consultant for Myanmar and Bangladesh at the International Crisis Group.